Part 1. The Grand Exodus. The massive ships moved through space like floating cities. Each one carried millions of humans away from the worlds they had called home for centuries. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the flagship Terra's Pride, watching the last transport vessels leave Earth's orbit. Behind them, Earth looked the same as always, blue and green wrapped in white clouds. But Chen knew this was goodbye forever. After 300 years of human expansion across the galaxy, they were leaving it all behind. "Admiral, the Galactic Council is requesting another meeting," said Lieutenant Park, her communications officer. The young woman's face showed worry. "They want to know why we're abandoning our colonies." Chen shook her head. "Tell them what I've told them for the past year. We're relocating to a safer region. But Admiral, they're calling us cowards. The Corax Empire is already moving fleets toward our border systems. The Zephyrians are talking about taking over our trade routes." "Let them," Chen said quietly. She turned to look at the holographic display showing their fleet. Thousands of ships carried the entire human population toward the edge of the galaxy. It was the largest migration in galactic history. On the planet Kepler Prime, Dr. Sarah Martinez finished shutting down the last research station. She had spent 15 years here studying quantum mechanics with her alien colleagues. Now she was packing everything humanity had learned into data cores. "Sarah, you must explain this madness," said Dr. Vexhai, a tall Mindari scientist with large dark eyes. The Mindari were telepaths, and Vexhai's mental voice carried confusion and hurt. "Your people are abandoning the greatest scientific discoveries in history. The energy readings from the galactic core could unlock secrets of the universe." Sarah sealed the last container. "Those readings aren't discoveries, Vex. They're warnings." "Warnings? Of what?" "Your human instruments are primitive compared to ours. We've analyzed the data. It's just natural stellar phenomena." Sarah looked at her friend sadly. "We've tried to explain. Your people, the Corax, the Zephyrians, everyone on the council. You won't listen. Because you won't share your full data. You humans always keep secrets. Always act like you know better than everyone else. This time we do." Sarah picked up her bags. "I'm sorry, Vex. I really am." The Mindari scientist watched her human friend walk away. Like all her people, she believed humans were arrogant and selfish. They had been the strongest military power in the galaxy for 3 centuries, but now they were running away like frightened children. In the Galactic Council chambers on the neutral station, Unity 7, representatives from dozens of species gathered for an emergency session. The chamber was a massive dome with floating platforms for each species. The humans had always occupied the largest platform, but today it stood empty. General Corax High, leader of the militant Corax Empire, slammed his armored fist on his platform. The reptilian warrior's red eyes glowed with anger. "The humans are cowards. For 300 years they have acted like they own the galaxy. Now they run at the first sign of unknown energy readings." Chairman Zephyrus of the Trade Federation nodded his blue head. The Zephyrians controlled most galactic commerce, but humans had always been their biggest competitors. "Their departure creates opportunities. We can expand into their territories, take over their shipping lanes." "But what if they're right about the danger?" asked Counselor Ethanara of the peaceful Valdris Union. Her species was known for caution and wisdom. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then General Corax High laughed, a harsh sound. "Right about what? They won't even tell us what they think the danger is. They just say trust us and expect us to abandon our homes like they have." "The humans have always been paranoid," said Dr. Vexhai from the Mindari platform. "Their primitive minds see threats everywhere. We should be glad they're gone. Now, real science can flourish without their fear and secrecy." The council voted unanimously. They would not follow the humans into exile. Instead, they would stay and prosper in the galaxy their ancestors had known for millions of years. Far from the council chambers, Admiral Chen stood in the observation deck of her flagship. The human fleet had reached the edge of the galaxy, a region they called the Dark Shore. Beyond lay empty space, and somewhere in that darkness the place they called Sanctuary. "Admiral, we're receiving final messages from the automated systems we left behind," reported Lieutenant Park. "The aliens are already moving into our former territories." Chen nodded. She had expected this. The other species saw opportunity where humans saw necessity. They always had. "Any word from the volunteers?" she asked. "Dr. Kim and his team are still maintaining the warning beacons around the core systems. They say alien ships are ignoring the warnings." Chen closed her eyes. 100 human volunteers had stayed behind to maintain critical systems and keep broadcasting warnings about the galactic core. They knew they were probably going to die, but they hoped their sacrifice might save some alien lives. Admiral, the Corax fleet is demanding to know why our defense platforms are still active around Earth. Park continued. Those aren't defense platforms anymore, Chen said. They're reality anchors. When the time comes, they'll understand. But Chen knew they wouldn't understand, not until it was too late. The human fleet began to disappear into the darkness beyond the galaxy. Their ships used technology the aliens had never seen before, drives that folded space in ways that seemed impossible. Within days, there was no trace of humanity in the known galaxy, except for automated systems and warning beacons that broadcast the same message over and over. Danger. Galactic core unstable. Evacuation recommended. Danger. On Unity 7, the Council voted to shut down the warning systems. They called them human fear propaganda and attempts to maintain control through terror. General Corax High announced that his empire would expand into human space within the month. The Zephyrians began planning new trade routes through former human territory. The Mindari prepared expeditions to study the energy readings that had frightened humans so badly. None of them noticed that the energy readings were getting stronger. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of Sanctuary Station, a massive structure, hidden in a pocket dimension beyond the galactic rim. Through the viewports she could see the lights of 1,000 human colonies, all protected by shields that bent space itself. How long do we have? She asked Dr. James Wright, humanity's leading expert on dimensional physics. Based on the progression rate, maybe 2 years before they start manifesting in normal space, Wright replied. The signs will begin much sooner. Will the aliens listen then? Wright shook his head. They'll find ways to explain it away. They always do. Pride makes people blind to uncomfortable truths. Chen looked back toward the galaxy they had abandoned. Somewhere out there, trillions of alien beings continued their lives, unaware that their universe was being eaten from the inside out by things that existed between dimensions. Then we prepare for the worst, she said, and we hope some of them survive long enough to learn. In the months that followed humanity's departure, the galaxy prospered like never before. The aliens called it the post-human golden age. They celebrated their freedom from human arrogance and fear. But in the depths of space near the galactic core, something stirred. Something that had been feeding for millions of years, growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The humans had tried to warn everyone. Now they could only watch and wait, hoping their preparations would be enough when the darkness finally came. Part 2. The Golden Age of Arrogance. 6 months after the last human ship vanished into dark space, the galaxy was thriving. Trade routes that had been controlled by humans for centuries now belonged to the Zephyrian Commerce Guild. Their blue-skinned merchants smiled as profits soared beyond their wildest dreams. The humans were holding us back, declared Guildmaster Zeph Allen from his luxurious office on the trade world of Nexus Prime. Through his crystal windows, he watched cargo ships loading goods that had once required human approval to transport. Their paranoid regulations, their constant security checks, their fear of everything new. We're finally free to do business properly. His assistant, a younger Zephyrian named Zephila, nodded eagerly. The shipping times have improved by 30% since we took over their routes, and the Corax Empire is paying double rates to move military supplies to their new territories. The Corax Empire had indeed wasted no time expanding into former human space. General Corax High stood in the command center of what had been humanity's Fort Gibraltar, the strongest military base in the Outer Rim. The massive fortress now flew Corax battle banners, and reptilian warriors marched through halls where human soldiers had once stood guard. Report, Corax High commanded his lieutenant. Sir, we've occupied 47 former human worlds without resistance, Lieutenant Coraxvel reported. Their automated defense systems shut down the moment we approached. It's like they wanted us to take over. Corax High laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. Of course they did. Humans were always weak behind their technology. They knew they couldn't fight a real warrior species, so they ran away before we could conquer them properly. The general walked to a large map showing Corax expansion. Red markers indicated newly claimed systems, stretching deep into what had been human space. Soon we'll control half the galaxy. The humans did us a favor by leaving. On the scientific research station Galileo 7, Dr. Vexhai of the Mindari was having the time of her life. The station had been a joint human-alien research facility, but now it belonged entirely to her people. The Mindari believed their telepathic abilities made them the galaxy's greatest scientists. The human data cores are fascinating, she told her research team. But their conclusions are so primitive. Look at this analysis of the galactic core, energy readings. She projected the human data into the air. Complex equations and warning symbols filled the holographic display. They interpreted these energy patterns as some kind of threat, Vexhai continued. But any advanced mind can see they're simply natural stellar phenomena. The core is undergoing a normal evolutionary phase. Dr. Yathara, a younger Mindari scientist, studied the data with her large black eyes. But Dr. Vexhai, some of these energy signatures don't match any known stellar processes. That's because human instruments were crude, Vexhai replied. Their non-telepathic minds couldn't perceive the true nature of cosmic forces. We, however, can sense the real patterns behind these readings. The Mindari had convinced themselves that their mental abilities gave them insights beyond physical science. They believed they could understand the universe through pure thought, without needing the careful measurements and tests that humans had relied on. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of worlds. The peaceful Valdres took over human agricultural colonies, claiming they could grow food more efficiently with their plant-based biology. The aquatic Ceteri expanded into human ocean worlds, building underwater cities in places humans had barely explored. Everyone agreed, life was better without humans. On the capital world of New Terra, now renamed Liberation by its new Zephyrian, owners' former human cities bustled with alien activity. The planet's massive spaceport, once the hub of human interstellar travel, now served as the galaxy's new commercial center. In what had been the human government building, the Galactic Council held a celebration. Representatives from every major species gathered to toast their new prosperity. To the post-human era, declared Chairman Zephyrus, raising a glass of synthetic alcohol. May we never again be held back by fear and paranoia. The assembled aliens cheered and drank. General Coraxai stood and addressed the crowd. For 300 years humans controlled this galaxy through intimidation and superior firepower, he said. They made us believe they were protecting us from unknown threats. But what threats? Where is this great danger they warned about? Gestured toward the large display showing galactic conditions. Everything appeared normal. Star systems operated as they had for millions of years. Trade flowed freely. The mysterious energy readings from the galactic core continued unchanged. They used fear to maintain control, Coraxai continued. But we have proven that courage and intelligence are stronger than human weapons. The galaxy belongs to its rightful inheritors now. More cheers erupted from the crowd. Only Councillor Ethanara of the Valdres seemed uncomfortable with the celebration. Perhaps we should maintain some caution, she suggested quietly. The humans seemed genuinely frightened when they left. Dr. Vexhai laughed, her telepathic voice carrying amusement to every mind in the room. Fear was always humanity's greatest weakness. They saw danger everywhere because their primitive brains couldn't process complex information properly. She activated a holographic projector showing her latest research. I've spent months analyzing their so-called warnings about the galactic core. Every single prediction they made is based on faulty assumptions and insufficient data. The crowd listened as Vexhai explained her theories. According to her analysis, the energy readings were simply the galaxy's core undergoing a natural renewal process. Instead of being dangerous, they might actually be beneficial. I believe these energy patterns could be harnessed, she concluded. Instead of running from them like the humans did, we should study them. They might hold the key to unlimited power. The council voted unanimously to fund Dr. Vexhai's research. They also approved General Coraxai's proposal to establish military bases in the Inner Rim, closer to the galactic core than humans had ever dared to venture. Over the following months, alien confidence continued to grow. Corax battle fleets pushed deeper into former human territory, claiming systems that had been marked as dangerous or off-limits in human star charts. The Zephyrian merchant fleets followed, establishing trading posts and mining operations in resource-rich systems that humans had avoided. Profits soared as previously forbidden worlds were opened for exploitation. The Mindari built new research stations, using their telepathic abilities to study cosmic phenomena without the crude instruments that humans had relied on. They published papers dismissing human warnings as fear-based pseudoscience. Even the normally cautious Valdres began to expand, their plant-based biology allowing them to terraform worlds that had been unsuitable for human life. They created vast forests on barren planets, bringing green life to systems that had been empty for billions of years. Only a few voices urged caution. Some older aliens remembered that humans had been right about threats before. Their paranoid security measures had prevented several wars. Their advanced military technology had stopped hostile invasions from outside the galaxy. But these voices were drowned out by the celebration of freedom and prosperity. The younger generation of aliens had grown up resenting human dominance. They saw the human departure as proof of weakness, not wisdom. Dr. Vexhai published her most famous paper during this time. The Myth of Cosmic Danger: How Human Fear Psychology Distorted Galactic Science. It became required reading in universities across the galaxy. In the paper, she argued that humans had evolved as prey animals on a dangerous world, making them see threats where none existed. Their scientific methods were corrupted by this fear-based thinking, leading to wrong conclusions about natural phenomena. The galaxy is not a dangerous place requiring constant vigilance, she wrote. It is a vast garden waiting to be explored and understood by minds capable of true scientific thought. The paper won the Galactic Science Prize and made Dr. Vexhai the most famous researcher in known space. Aliens lined up to hear her lectures about the new age of fearless exploration. Meanwhile, in the depths of space near the galactic core, the energy readings continued to strengthen. But no one was paying attention anymore. The automated monitoring stations that humans had left behind broadcast their warnings to empty space. The aliens had shut down most of them, calling them noise, pollution. The few that remained were ignored, their data dismissed as the final gasps of human paranoia. General Coraxhai established his new headquarters on a planet that human charts had labeled Severe Risk, Do Not Approach. He renamed it Courage, World, and used it as a symbol of alien superiority over human cowardice. From his command center there, he could see the glow of the galactic core in the night sky. The energy patterns that had terrified humans seemed beautiful to him. He ordered his scientists to study ways to weaponize them. If humans were too weak to harness this power, he declared, then we will show them what true strength looks like. The Golden Age was in full swing. Across the galaxy, aliens celebrated their freedom from human influence. They built cities where humans had feared to tread. Part 3. The first signs 2 years had passed since humanity's departure, and the galaxy was richer than ever. But in the Outer Rim territories, strange reports began to filter through the communication networks. Captain Zephorin of the merchant vessel Golden Prophet was the first to file an official report. His ship had been traveling through what used to be human space, carrying luxury goods to the new Corax colonies. Control, this is Golden Prophet requesting assistance, he transmitted from his bridge. We've lost contact with the trading post, on Kepler 7. The response came from the Zephyrian Trade Control Center on Nexus Prime. Explain the situation, Captain. We arrived at the scheduled time, but there's no response from the station. No ships in orbit, no energy readings. It's like the whole place just went dark. The control officer checked his records. Kepler 7 reported normal operations 3 days ago. Their last transmission was routine. Captain Zephorin guided his ship closer to the planet. Through his view screen, he could see the surface where a bustling colony of 10,000 aliens had been living and working. Now there was nothing. No lights, no movement, no signs of life. Control, I'm not seeing any damage, no weapons fire, no explosions. The buildings are all intact, but there's nobody here. That's impossible, Captain. Check your instruments. But the instruments were working perfectly. They showed exactly what Captain Zephorin was seeing, an empty world where a thriving colony had been just days before. Similar reports began coming in from across the Outer Rim. Ships arriving at scheduled destinations found nothing but silence. Not destruction, just absence. Trading posts, mining operations, research stations, all gone without explanation. The Galactic Council initially dismissed these incidents as equipment failures or communication errors. Guildmaster Zeph Allen issued a statement claiming that some merchant captains were filing false reports to cover up their own navigation mistakes. But the pattern continued. By the end of the month, 17 installations had gone silent. All of them were in former human space, in areas that human star charts had marked with various warnings. General Coraxhai stood in his command center on Courage World, studying tactical displays that showed the missing installations. His red eyes glowed with frustration. Lieutenant, what's the status of our investigation teams? He demanded. Lieutenant Coraxville looked uncomfortable. Sir, we've sent ships to 12 of the missing locations. Only half of them have reported back. And the others? No contact, sir. They reached their destinations and then... nothing. Corax High slammed his fist on the command console. Ships don't just disappear. Are we dealing with pirates, sabotage, some kind of human trap they left behind? We don't know, sir. The ships that did return found the same thing. Empty installations with no signs of struggle or damage. Whatever happened, it was quick and clean. The general turned to his science officer, a captured human AI that his forces had found in an abandoned research station. The humans had left behind many such artificial intelligence systems to maintain critical equipment. Computer, analyze the pattern of disappearances, Corax High ordered. The AI's voice was calm and mechanical. Analysis complete. All missing installations were located within 50 light-years of areas marked as high risk in human navigation databases. What kind of risks? Unknown. Human files are encrypted beyond my access level, Corax High growled in frustration. Even after 2 years, human paranoia was still causing problems. Meanwhile, Dr. Vexhai was experiencing troubles of her own. Her research station had been monitoring the energy readings from the galactic core, and the data was becoming increasingly disturbing. Dr. Yathara, run the analysis again, she ordered her assistant. There must be an error in our calculations. The younger Mindari scientist rechecked their telepathic readings. The Mindari believed they could sense cosmic forces directly through their mental abilities, without needing physical instruments. The patterns are definitely changing, Yathara reported. The energy signatures are getting stronger and they're spreading outward from the core. Vexhai studied the data with growing concern. For months she had been claiming that the galactic core readings were natural phenomena. But now they were behaving in ways that didn't match any known stellar processes. Perhaps we should contact the human volunteers who stayed behind, suggested another researcher, Dr. Ketharan. They might have additional data. Absolutely not, Vexhai snapped. We don't need human fear-mongering to contaminate our research. We can solve this using proper scientific methods. But privately, she was beginning to have doubts. The energy patterns weren't following the natural laws she expected. They seemed almost purposeful. On the former human world of New Geneva, now a Corax military base, Commander Coraxaseth was dealing with his own mysterious problems. His soldiers were reporting equipment failures and strange sensor readings. Sir, the perimeter sensors are picking up massive subspace distortions, reported Sergeant Corax Moore. But there's nothing there. Commander Coraxaseth examined the readings on his tactical display. Waves of energy were washing over their planet, but they seemed to exist in dimensions beyond normal space. Run a full diagnostic on all sensor equipment, he ordered. We've run diagnostics 6 times, sir. The equipment is working perfectly. These readings are real. The commander frowned. The energy patterns reminded him of something he had seen in captured human technical manuals. The humans had written extensively about dimensional incursions and reality distortions, but Corax's military doctrine had dismissed these as human superstitions. Now he was beginning to wonder if the humans had known something after all. Across the galaxy, more installations went dark. The disappearances followed a clear pattern, spreading outward from the galactic core like ripples in a pond. But the Galactic Council continued to downplay the situation. These are isolated incidents, Chairman Zephyrus announced in a public broadcast. There's no evidence of any systematic threat. Some facilities may have experienced technical difficulties, but our engineers are working to restore communication. Behind closed doors, however, the Council was growing worried. The missing installations represented billions of credits in lost investment. More importantly, they were losing contact with some of their most important strategic positions. Dr. Vexhai finally made a decision that went against everything she had publicly stated. She decided to examine the human data that she had spent 2 years dismissing. Working in secret, she accessed the encrypted files that humans had left behind in their research stations. What she found made her telepathic abilities recoil in shock. The human data contained detailed information about entities that existed partially outside normal space-time. The humans called them devourers, beings that fed on the quantum foundations of reality itself. According to the human research, these entities had been dormant in the galactic core for millions of years. But something was waking them up. The energy readings that aliens had dismissed as natural phenomena were actually the devourers stirring to consciousness. Vexhai's hands shook as she read through file after file of human observations and theories. The humans hadn't been paranoid. or cowardly. They had been terrified by a very real threat that they barely understood. One file contained a personal log from Dr. Sarah Martinez, the human scientist who had worked alongside Vexhi before the Exodus. "We've tried to warn them," Sarah's recorded voice said. "But how do you explain something that exists between dimensions? How do you make someone believe in monsters that eat reality itself? The other species think we're crazy, but we've seen what these things can do. They don't just destroy worlds, they unmake them. They erase them from existence so completely that the universe forgets they ever existed." Vexhi felt sick. She had spent 2 years publicly mocking human intelligence while the evidence of a cosmic threat had been right in front of her. She tried to contact her government, but her telepathic transmissions seemed strange and distorted. Something was interfering with Mindari mental abilities across their entire territory. Meanwhile, General Koraxhi received a communication that changed everything. It came from Dr. Kim, one of the human volunteers who had stayed behind to maintain warning systems. "General, this is Dr. Kim from Monitoring Station Alpha. I'm transmitting this on all emergency frequencies." Koraxhi's translator struggled with the human language, but the meaning was clear enough. "The entities are beginning to manifest in normal space. The disappearances you've been experiencing are just the beginning. They don't destroy matter. They consume the quantum information that defines reality. Anything they touch stops existing." The human's voice was calm, but Koraxhi could hear the fear underneath. "We tried to warn everyone before we left. The readings from the galactic core weren't natural phenomena. They were signs that these things were waking up. We estimate you have maybe 6 months before they reach full manifestation." The transmission continued with technical details about the entity's nature and behavior. The humans had names for them: quantum devourers, reality feeders, the unnamed hunger. They existed in spaces between dimensions, feeding on the basic forces that held the universe together. When the transmission ended, Koraxhi sat in silence for a long time. Part 4. The Reckoning. The Devourers had awakened. Across the galaxy, entire star systems began vanishing from existence, not destroyed by explosions or consumed by black holes, simply erased, as if they had never been. The few survivors who escaped these zones found themselves unable to remember what had been there before. Dr. Vexhi floated in an escape pod, her research station's emergency systems having saved her at the last moment. She stared at the empty space where the planet Mindara Prime should have been. 50 billion Mindari had lived there. Now there was nothing but void, and she could barely remember their names. "Emergency transmission to all Galactic Council members," she broadcast with her remaining communication equipment. "This is Dr. Vexhi. The entities are real. They're not destroying matter. They're erasing it from reality itself. We need immediate evacuation of all core territories." But her warning came too late for most listeners. On the Korax homeworld of Warforged, General Koraxhi watched his empire crumble in real time. Battle reports came in constantly, each one worse than the last. "Sir, the Third Fleet has lost contact with Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Koraxvel, his voice cracking with strain. "That's 12 star systems gone in the past hour." Koraxhi studied the tactical display. Red zones marked areas where entire civilizations had vanished. The O pattern was spreading outward from the galactic core like a disease. "What about our weapons?" he demanded. "Have any of our fleets engaged these entities?" "Admiral Koraxathane tried to fight them at the Crimson Nebula," Koraxvel replied. "His fleet fired everything they had: plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, reality bombs. The weapons passed right through the entities as if they weren't there. And then? The fleet stopped existing, sir. Not destroyed. Just gone. Our sensors show empty space where 1,000 warships used to be. For 3 centuries, the Korax Empire had been built on military might. Their warriors feared nothing, and their weapons could crack planets in half. But how do you fight an enemy that exists partially outside the universe?" Koraxhi activated his personal communicator and sent a message he never thought he would send. A plea for help to the human volunteers. "Dr. Kim, this is General Koraxhi of the Korax Empire. Our forces cannot stop these entities. Do you have information that could help us?" The response came quickly. Dr. Kim's voice was tired but patient. "General, we spent decades preparing for this. The Devourers feed on quantum information, the basic data that defines reality. Conventional weapons can't hurt them because they exist in spaces between dimensions. Then how do we fight them? You can't. Not with the technology your people have. We tried to tell everyone that evacuation was the only option." Koraxhi felt rage building in his chest. "Are you saying we should run away like you humans did? We Didn't run away, General. We're getting ready to fight. But first we had to save as many people as possible. Before HFY could respond, another alarm sounded. The Devourers had reached the outer edge of Korak's space. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian trade hub of Nexus Prime, Guildmaster Zephalin was, discovering that all his wealth meant nothing against enemies that consumed reality itself. "Sir, the banking networks are failing," reported his assistant Zephila. "Every world that gets erased takes its financial records with it. We're losing track of trillions of credits." Zephalin watched the trade displays that had been his pride and joy. Shipping routes that had made him the richest being in the galaxy were disappearing as the worlds they connected ceased to exist. "What about evacuation?" he asked desperately. "Can we move our assets to safer territories?" "Where is safe, sir? These entities are spreading in all directions. At this rate, they'll consume the entire galaxy within a year." For the first time in his life, the master merchant had nothing valuable to trade. His ships, his goods, his credits. None of it mattered against an enemy that could erase the very concept of ownership. In her escape pod, Dr. Vexai was trying to make sense of the human data she had finally begun to study. Her telepathic abilities were badly damaged by her encounter with the Devourers, but she could still read the files that Sarah Martinez had left behind. The human research painted a terrifying picture. The Devourers were ancient beings that existed in quantum dimensions parallel to normal space. They fed on the information patterns that defined reality, turning complex matter and energy back into simple quantum static. According to human theory, the entities had been dormant for millions of years, resting in the quantum spaces near the galactic core. But something had awakened them. The files suggested it might have been the increased technological activity of galactic civilization itself. "We may have caused this," Sarah's notes read. "Every FTL jump, every energy weapon, every quantum computer creates disturbances in dimensional space. We might have been feeding them with our own progress." Vexai felt sick. If the humans were right, then galactic civilization had been slowly waking up its own destroyers for thousands of years. She found another file that made her telepathic mind recoil in horror. It contained humans' attempts to communicate with the Devourers. "They don't think like us," the file explained. "They exist in dimensions where cause and effect work differently. To them, consuming our reality isn't destruction. It's returning the universe to a simpler, purer state. They see our complex matter and organized energy as a kind of infection that needs to be cleaned away." The file included a partial translation of Devourer thoughts, if they could be called thoughts. The patterns were alien beyond comprehension, but their meaning was clear. Everything that existed in normal space was an error that needed to be corrected. Across the galaxy, the few remaining civilizations finally understood what humanity had been trying to tell them. But understanding came too late for most. The Valdris tried to hide in their vast forest worlds, hoping their plant-based biology might be invisible to the entities. But the Devourers consumed everything equally. Plants, animals, even the soil itself vanished into quantum void. The aquatic Centauri retreated to the deepest oceans of their homeworld, thinking that water might protect them. But the entities erased the very concept of H2O from local space, leaving the Centauri gasping in vacuum where their oceans had been. Species after species discovered that their greatest strengths meant nothing against enemies that could rewrite the laws of physics. Only then did they begin to understand what humanity had really been during their 3 centuries of galactic dominance. Not conquerors or bullies, but guardians. Every human military base, every paranoid security measure, every aggressive response to unknown threats had been preparation for this moment. The humans had been the galaxy's immune system, and the other species had driven them away. General Koraxai made contact with other surviving military leaders, trying to coordinate some kind of resistance. But their forces were melting away like ice and fire. Entire fleets would charge bravely into battle and then simply cease to exist. "We need the humans," he finally admitted to his war council. "Whatever technology they developed, whatever weapons they built, we need them now." But reaching humanity was easier said than done. The human exodus had taken them beyond the galactic rim, to a region of space that no alien had ever explored. Even if ships could make the journey, how would they find a civilization that had vanished into dark space? Dr. Kim provided the answer in his final transmission from the monitoring stations. "For any species that want to seek human assistance," he broadcast on all emergency frequencies, "follow the quantum trail left by our Exodus fleet. Our ships use dimensional displacement drives that left detectable signatures in subspace. The message continued with technical details about tracking human ships across interstellar distances, but the transmission was interrupted by energy surges as more monitoring stations were consumed by the advancing devourers. "Tell the survivors." Kim's voice faded in and out through static. "Tell them we're sorry it came to this. We tried to save everyone." The transmission ended with a sound like reality itself screaming. In the depths of space beyond the galactic rim, Admiral Chen Wei stood in the command center of Sanctuary Station. Around her, millions of humans worked frantically to complete preparations that had been decades in the making. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from across the galaxy," reported Lieutenant Park, now promoted to commander. "The alien governments are requesting assistance." Chen studied the tactical displays showing the Devourers' advance. Red zones marked vast areas where reality had been consumed, returning to quantum static. At the current rate of spread, the entire galaxy would be gone within 8 months. "How many refugee ships have made it to our position?" she asked. 12 so far, mostly small craft carrying a few hundred survivors each. Total alien refugees about 8,000. 8,000 survivors from a galactic population of trillions. Chen closed her eyes, feeling the weight of all those lives lost. "Admiral," Park continued softly, "some of the alien leaders are asking why we left. They want to know if we abandoned them deliberately." Chen opened her eyes and looked at the displays showing human preparations. Massive construction projects filled the space around Sanctuary Station. Ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen took shape in automated shipyards. Part 5. The Price of Pride. The survivors arrived at humanity's sanctuary in broken ships and desperate hope. Dr. Vexhai's escape pod was among the last to make the journey, her telepathic abilities barely functional after her encounter with the Devourers. As her pod docked with the massive human station, she saw something that made her damaged mind struggle to comprehend its scope. Sanctuary wasn't just a station, it was an entire civilization. Thousands of habitats floated in precisely organized formations, each one containing millions of humans. But these weren't the humans she remembered. These people moved with the focused intensity of a species preparing for war against the universe. Itself. Commander Park met Vexhai at the airlock. The human woman looked older, more tired than when Vexhai had last seen her species. "Dr. Vexhai," Park said formally. "Admiral Chen is waiting to speak with all surviving leaders." Vexhai followed, Park through corridors filled with humans working on incomprehensible projects. Through viewports she could see vast construction sites where ships unlike anything in galactic history took shape. "What are those vessels?" she asked. "Reality anchors," Park replied. "Ships designed to fight enemies that exist between dimensions." They arrived at a conference room where other survivors waited. General Korexai sat slumped in a chair meant for humans, his proud bearing replaced by exhausted defeat. Guildmaster Zephalin stared at financial reports showing the complete collapse of galactic commerce. A handful of other alien leaders represented all that remained of their civilizations. Admiral Chen entered the room. She looked like she had aged decades in the 3 years since humanity's departure. Her hair was gray, her face marked by the weight of impossible decisions. "I'm sorry it's come to this," she began without ceremony. "We tried to warn everyone." General Korexai lifted his head. "You tried to make us abandon our homes." "Because we knew what was coming," Chen replied. "We've been studying the Devourers for over 50 years. We knew evacuation was the only way to save lives." "But you didn't tell us the truth," Dr. Vexhai protested, her damaged telepathic voice crackling. "You kept secrets, made us think you were paranoid." Chen sat down heavily. "Would you have believed us? We tried to explain about entities that exist between dimensions, about creatures that feed on reality itself. You called us primitive and fear-driven." She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Vast red zones, marked areas consumed by the Devourers. Less than 10% of inhabited space remained. "The truth is," Chen continued, "we didn't fully understand them ourselves, until it was almost too late. Our first encounter with the Devourers happened 30 years ago, when a deep space probe accidentally created a dimensional rift near the galactic core. The display changed to show archived footage. A human research ship was studying quantum anomalies when space around it simply stopped existing. The ship and its crew of 200 vanished so completely that even the records of their names became unclear. We spent 3 decades learning to fight something that shouldn't exist," Chen explained. "Every advancement in human technology after that point was focused on this threat. Our aggressive military buildup, Our paranoid security measures, our refusal to share certain technologies, it was all preparation. Guildmaster Zephalin leaned forward. But why didn't you trust us with this information? Because trust is earned through actions, not words, Chen replied. When we tried to establish evacuation procedures for dimensional emergencies, the Council called them human power grabs. When we suggested limitations on quantum technology, near the galactic core, you accused us of trying to monopolize scientific research. She paused, looking at each alien leader. Every time we tried to protect the galaxy, you saw it as an attempt to control it. Dr. Vexihai felt sick as memories flooded back. How many human warnings had she dismissed as paranoia? How many safety protocols had she argued against as unnecessary restrictions? Show them the real cost, said a new voice. Everyone turned as Dr. Sarah Martinez entered the room. Vexihai's former colleague looked exhausted, her face marked by years of desperate research. Sarah, Vexihai whispered. Hello, Vex, Sarah said sadly. I stayed behind to help coordinate the evacuation of your people. We managed to save about 50,000 Mindari before the Devourers reached your home system. Vexihai felt her damaged telepathy stir. 50,000. There were billions of us. I know, Sarah said. We tried to warn everyone in time, but... She activated another display showing the human evacuation efforts. For 3 years, small teams of human volunteers had worked in secret throughout alien space, setting up emergency shelters and evacuation routes. We couldn't save everyone, Sarah continued, but we preserved samples of every species along with their cultural records and genetic information. If we survive this, your civilizations can be rebuilt. The room fell silent as the scope of humanity's efforts became clear. While aliens had been celebrating their freedom from human influence, humans had been risking their lives to prepare rescue operations for the very people who had rejected their warnings. Admiral Chen stood and walked to the viewport overlooking the human construction sites. The weapons we're building can stop the Devourers, but the cost will be enormous. We call them reality bombs, devices that can destabilize the quantum dimensions where the entities exist. She turned back to the alien leaders. But using them will burn out entire star systems. The energy release will sterilize hundreds of light years of space. We estimate that stopping the Devourers will require sacrificing 60% of the remaining galaxy. General Korax Hai stood up, his warrior instincts finally grasping the situation. You're going to destroy most of what's left to save the rest. It's the only way, Chen confirmed. The Devourers are spreading too fast for conventional evacuation. We have to create kill zones that will stop their advance, even if it means sacrificing the star systems in between. The alien leaders exchanged looks of horror and understanding. Humanity hadn't fled in cowardice. They had retreated to build weapons so terrible that using them would be almost as devastating as the enemy they were meant to fight. The irony, Chen continued, is that we could have built these weapons decades ago. But we were too busy protecting the galaxy to risk the collateral damage. Now with 90% of galactic civilization already gone, we finally have the freedom to use them. Dr. Vexihai looked out at the human construction sites with new understanding. You're going to sacrifice yourselves too, aren't you? Chen nodded. The reality bombs have to be manually triggered from close range. Each one requires a crew that won't survive the activation. We estimate we'll need about 50 ships, with crews totaling around 2 million humans. But there are other ways, Zephalin protested. Remote detonation automated systems. Not against enemies that can rewrite local physics, Sarah explained. The Devourers will disable any automated system before it can fire. Only conscious minds can adapt quickly enough to complete the activation sequence. The scope of humanity's sacrifice was staggering. They were preparing to kill millions of their own people to save the remnants of civilizations that had rejected their protection. Why? Dr. Vexihai asked. After everything we said about you, everything we did, why are you still trying to save us? Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of humanity's burden. Because that's what Guardians do, she said simply. We protect people whether they want our protection or not. Whether they understand the threats or not. Whether they thank us or not. She activated one final display showing the current Devourer positions and the planned reality bomb deployment. The operation begins in 72 hours, she announced. We'll evacuate as many survivors as possible to pocket dimensions beyond the galactic rim. The new civilizations will be smaller, more careful. Hopefully wiser. Over the next 3 days, the alien survivors watched as humanity prepared for its final battle. Volunteers lined up for suicide missions, families said goodbye to loved ones who would never return, and engineers put finishing touches on weapons that would reshape space itself. Dr. Vexhai found herself working alongside Sarah, helping to coordinate the evacuation of the few remaining alien populations. It was strange to be cooperating with humans again after years of dismissing their concerns. I was wrong about everything, she admitted to Sarah during a break in their work. No, Sarah replied. You were wrong about us, but not about everything. Your research into dimensional physics actually helped us understand the Devourers better. If you had just listened when we tried to share our findings. She shrugged sadly. But pride makes people blind to uncomfortable truths. As the reality bomb fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Chen gave one final address to the assembled survivors. In our silent departure 3 years ago, humanity left to save everyone, she said. We hoped that evacuation would be enough, that we could preserve galactic civilization by moving it to safety. But your species chose to stay, and now we must choose a different path. She paused, looking at the alien faces in the audience. In our return, we will save what remains of your worlds and peoples. But the cost will be most of our own population. We do this not because you deserve it, but because life itself deserves protection.